leading a new generation of Republican. This is the Grand New Party Update.
This past September 25th, sitting Speaker of the House John Boehner announced he was stepping down at the end of October. While it was expected that this may be his last term, the decision to step down early threw the House into a state of partial panic. Worries increased when Representatives Trey Gowdy and Kevin McCarthy both declined the position. Paul Ryan has been hesitant to take the job and only did so on the condition that he will not be forced to give up family time or be forced to be on the road or kept away from his family at any given moment. So Paul Ryan deciding to balance his potential speakership with his family, which was the primary condition for him accepting the job, Dennis.
Those are great conditions. Personal life and work life there needs to be a balance there, and your family needs to come first. It just shows me that Paul Ryan has great traditional family morals and values, and I really liked him back when he first got elected, and I've liked him ever since.
It was something that a lot of supporters really weren't expecting when it came to conditions for being the Speaker of the House. And he also ended up winning the majority with the Liberty Caucus, which was also kind of... I think that right now he's in a position where he has both mainstream support and the Tea Party support. So he might be the right guy at the right time to unify the Republican Party in the Congress.
Yeah, if there's one thing we need is unity, something we haven't had in quite some time, not even, just in the Republican Party, but in the country as a whole. Paul Ryan is definitely going to be able to unify the Republican Party and hopefully start doing some of the things that we elected them to do, such as end funding for Planned Parenthood and cut back on Obamacare.
Now, if this was done in different circumstances, because Paul Ryan is kind of the face of the GOP budget, or at least he was when he ran with Mitt Romney, I'd almost say that it was sending a signal that the GOP is getting ready to crack down on the budget again. But given the fact that this is kind of like the one guy without a chair situation, I'm not sure if I can draw that conclusion. Well,
let's hope they can get the budget under control. And that is a top priority that most of us see. And I think the only way we're going to be able to do that is with appropriation bills and going back to the way it used to be done. Now, if we could get, if Paul Ryan could do exactly what I said and unify the party, we'll be able to get it done. We will be able to pull some Democrats over, and if we can unify our party and get enough Democrats, we can overturn veto power from the president. And that's something we desperately need, is a unified Republican Party and Democrats willing to step up and do the right thing.
Now, one of the big things is there are two big problems, I think, that are with the budget when it comes to how the Congress does budgeting. First is all the appropriations are done with the budget right now, and that's traditionally done separately, but for some reason they've decided to lump all the stuff together, so it's a winner-takes-all on the budget these last several years, and I think that might be why they're having a hard time passing budgets. I think the other thing is a lot of times we see Republicans and Democrats agreeing to fund each other's projects, and that's been only increasing the debt. So it's almost like I want to see a reversal of that where Republicans and Democrats agree to cut each other's funds. That's what I'd like to see.
Well, I don't think you'll ever get a Democrat to agree to cut anything. However,
we'll see.
I do think that you will be able, with a majority, you will be able to cut key aspects of it. I don't think cuts will come from the military. I would like to see cuts come from the military. That's probably not going to happen. You will hopefully see some of these entitlement programs get cut.
I think entitlement cuts are a significant thing, especially now, and this is something that the Democrats don't like to admit, but Social Security and Medicaid alone have outpaced the entire military budget. And it used to be that the military budget was bigger than them, and that was a big selling point for their arguments on the budget, but that is no longer the case.
Right. Well, Obama really did step up and, slash and burn the budget when it came to military spending. We've seen ramifications to that, The certain things they're cutting don't really make too much sense. But, like I said, I think Paul Ryan stepping up as the Speaker is a great thing for not just the Republican Party, but the everyday American.
Now, this isn't just a case where Trey Gowdy and McCarthy decided not to get the job. I want to use this as a transition almost. The Democrats have had a couple people dropping out of their presidential primaries.
Correct, yes. Joe Biden never actually started. He had a pretty big blunder right before his official announcement, and as soon as people latched onto that, he decided not to run, which was a smart move because after saying that, after football, it's such an important issue, he wasn't going to get anyone's support. And, Hillary is just looking so strong to take this thing. Why spend the time, money, and energy to lose an election? I asked the same question for a lot of the Republicans who are still in the race.
And I think Hillary was probably the happiest person in the aftermath of that announcement because Joe Biden very well could have cost her the nomination and either won it himself or given it to Bernie Sanders based off of a split vote.
Yeah, no doubt if he got in, Bernie Sanders would have been the Democrat nominee. No doubt. So I'm sure the Hillary Mafia went in there, the Clinton Mafia went in there and said, hey, Joe, here's some money. Don't do anything. Or, hey, we'll give you this when we win.
Now,
I'm sure there was bribing and crooked politicians that are very associated with the Clintons, and I don't think anyone can deny that.
I think we've seen a major shift in the Democratic Party over the last, I want to say, half century, and that could be nowhere better evidenced by the fact that Jim Webb had such a poor showing and has dropped out already. I know. What
it was again, media manipulation of the everyday person. And to go along with that, also, the Democrat Party as a whole, they only care, they want to win.
Now,
they don't care who's right for the job. They're going to put someone who they think they can win.
I'm not going to necessarily completely discount the idea that the media didn't give him as much attention as Bernie and Hillary because clearly they gave them much more attention. But if the Democratic debate was anything to judge, Jim Webb just simply did not resonate with Democrats anymore. He had classic Democrat values. The LBJ would have been proud of him based off of his performance. But at the same time, the room was a cold room. It was almost like crickets were chirping every time he spoke.
Yeah, no, the Democrats have definitely moved away from what made them such a good party in the past. And they're going to continue to slip into the socialism black hole. It's going to swallow their party. And it's not going to... Hopefully, it doesn't resonate with voters here. Hopefully, people wake up and say, hey, we don't want to end up like Greece. We don't want to end up like Ireland. We don't want to end up like Italy or countless other European socialist nations that have completely collapsed. And hopefully, people realize that and they disregard the Socialist Party. And maybe that makes the Democrats go back to their traditional ways. And that's something we can actually work with. Can't work with socialists.
It is a very concerning, especially with an $18 trillion debt today. Finally, we have the dropout pick of the week. I understand that you're going to just stick with the same pick that you've had.
Yeah, I've been waffling on do I want to switch it to Bobby Jindal or stick with George Boltaki. I'm going to stick with George Boltaki instead of switching over to Bobby Jindal. But we'll see how it continues. I know that George Boltaki has been here in New Hampshire a couple of times now. So we'll see if that continues. We'll see how long this drags out. I can't believe we still have 16 Republican candidates for president.
It is pretty late term for people to be heading in, but I think as we head into November, you're going to see 2 or 3 people drop out, and we might both be right on this because I still say Lindsey Graham, although Bobby Jindal is definitely a good pick. If anybody has that for their pick, I think that's a very good chance. I think 2 or 3 of them are going to drop out the first week in November, and you could just expect like a whole week of, I guess, carnage, you could say, when it comes to the Republican primary.
So instead of a trickling away on the field, do you think it's going to be a giant
mass
drop-off?
exodus would be the term I would use. I think it's going to be a mass exodus where you'll have a number of people drop out all in a rapid-fire fashion. Finally, I'd also like to have a reaction to Bridge of Spies, which is a new movie in theaters. Tom Hanks, directed by Steven Spielberg. Phenomenal movie, very topical in an antiquated way, I guess you could say. It's about Tom Hanks' character who's an accountant lawyer, and he's basically made to defend a Russian spy, and then eventually that turns into a negotiation to have that Russian spy swapped with an American U-2 pilot, and it's based off a true story. I happen to find it extremely good, very well directed, and I felt that it really resonated with American values in demonstrating how the crowd can tend to let their defense of their nation, the nationalism, get away from the thing that makes us America, which is the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and things that defend individual rights. And I felt like Tom Hanks' character throughout the entire movie was the stalwart defender of American virtues.
I'm glad you liked the movie. It is something, we're going to be talking about, and people should start talking about, is fascism, because there are a couple of candidates in the Republican Party that are very close to fascism, and then on the other side you have socialism. The two things that are absolutely horrible for this country are becoming almost a reality, and they're two things that we should all start studying up on.
And we really need to, I think that's more important than ever, not to be reactionary, because I know that's the impulse. I have the impulse. Everybody has the impulse to react when you hear the other side say something so outlandish that you just want to slap them across the face. But it's the call to every American citizen that we have to remember what makes us Americans, to respect other views, and at the same time stand for our principles as a consistent stand rather than wanting to react to the other side and go the complete opposite direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Dennis. Well, thank you very much for joining me.
You are welcome. I'm going to try to get over this little cold that I have. Actually, I took a Dayquil today, and I will say this. Dayquil is probably one of the most disgusting tasting things on the planet. If I ever hear a kid say, "Oh, I can't wait to grow up," I'm going to slap him and say, "You get bubblegum flavored cough medicine?" I don't want to hear it. The stuff we got to take when we get sick tastes like garbage.
I'd recommend echinacea tea as well.
I don't really drink tea, but thanks for the recommendation.
It's phenomenal. All right, Dennis. Well, I will talk to you next week.
All right, you take care.
You too.
Grand New Party Update is the intellectual property of Tony Zork and Dennis Rose. Voice of credits provided by Gino Devaney. Theme music, Namaste, by Jason Shaw, as discovered off freemusicarchive.org on the album Tech Urban Dance.